The Royals got back on track on the homestand, but can they take that momentum on the road? We'll dive into it next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can download this podcast on wherever you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners, here's how this podcast works. We bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes, usually after each Royals game, so a little bit later on in the evening. But on days like today, when they've got an off day, or on Fridays, where we have a Mailbag Friday, where you send in your questions and we get to as many as we can in a 30-minute episode, those will come to you a little bit earlier on in the evening, if not some point in the afternoon. We also bring you 60-second recaps at the end of every Royals game, and you can look for those directly on YouTube, just for a quick summary on what happened and some initial takeaways that I would have from that game. Now, before we get started, I want to let you know about the title sponsor today, which is Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. And this episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed, and head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more today. As we brought up, the Royals have an off day before they head to Tampa to take on the Rays for a 3-game series at George M. Steinbrenner Field, and then they will head to Camden Yards and take on the Baltimore Orioles for a 3-game set beginning on Friday, and that will actually wrap up the season series between the Royals and Baltimore. Very similar to what happened last year, where they played the Orioles early on, their first road trip of the year, and they saw the Orioles a little bit later on at Kauffman Stadium before the end of April. So they will not see Baltimore again unless they met in the postseason for the second consecutive year. And with the way things are looking early on for Baltimore, not sold that would happen. But you also could have the argument of, who knows, maybe the Royals don't make it back to October, just being 14-15 right now. Maybe their offense never really catches on, and we won't have to worry about either of these teams playing each other because both of them would be missing the postseason. But that's what's on deck for the Royals for their road trip. It's their second straight off day on a Monday, and you could maybe say it comes at a good time. They had just rattled off 6 in a row, gotten back to 500. They lose on Sunday to Houston, and now they have a chance to regroup before taking on a very hot Tampa Bay team that had a West Coast road trip where they took 2 out of 3 from Arizona, and they also just swept the Padres in San Diego. So we'll have more of a deep dive into that Rays series for our final segment. For the first one, though, we're going to take a look back at this most recent homestand for Kansas City. Now, if you were listening throughout last week, we were recapping what happened against Colorado. We recapped the doubleheader, and we previewed that series against the Houston Astros. I will say that the winning streak was kind of what the title of this episode is. It just got this team back on track, but it didn't necessarily solve all the issues that they've been dealing with. I mean, against Colorado, that was a team that needed to beat up on a much worse team. And even though the Royals entered that series with just 8 wins or 9 wins, I believe it was, like, Colorado was significantly worse than them. And despite that 9th inning collapse that Carlos Estevez had on Tuesday night, they never really struggled with Colorado. I mean, they trailed 4-2 in game 1 of the doubleheader, ended up winning that game by 3 runs, and then Michael Lorenzen was damn good in game 2, and the offense did enough to, push away from them in the latter innings. So that whole series, they did what they were supposed to do, and we brought that up on Thursday's episode, which was, you never apologize for beating bad teams, but we can't look at that series and say, oh, well, now everything's fine. Because even though they swept Colorado, and the result would have been the same as if they would have beat them, 28-0 over those 3 games, like, they got 3 wins and got closer to 500. And they took some of that momentum into the Houston series. And an Astros team I might bring up was coming off a sweep. They were playing good baseball, and the Royals shut them out for the first 20 innings of that series. They win game 1, 2-0. They win game 2, 2-0. I was actually out there at Kauffman Stadium for Walker's start, but Lugo was even more brilliant on Friday. The offense didn't produce a lot of runs, but you are seeing better at-bats. I've seen better at-bats from Jonathan India. I have seen better at-bats from Salvador Perez. I've seen better at-bats from even guys like Kyle Isbell and Hunter Renfroe. So you can see a little bit of the evening out that we've been discussing for the better part of a month. That once this team finally gets into a groove and they're winning a lot of games, you're going to notice that these at-bats get better, even if they're not putting up 7, 8, 9 runs in one game of a series. And against Houston, they got 2, 2, and 3. They faced 2 really good arms in Framber Valdez, and then they also saw maybe the hottest pitcher in the American League in Hunter Brown. Maybe go one step further and say the hottest pitcher in all of baseball in Hunter Brown. So to take 2 of 3 from Houston, you're not feeling bad about that whatsoever. The fact you shut them out for 20 consecutive innings, it still shows the talent of this pitching staff. And you got great work from the bullpen. Lucas Ursig, he gets the save on Friday night. Carlos Estevez gets the ball on Saturday night, throws less than 10 pitches, 1, 2, 3. Steven Cruz gets a high leverage inning on Saturday night. John Schreiber, he worked around a jam in the 8th inning. Like, they're getting contributions from a lot of guys in the bullpen and in high leverage spots. Not all of them went perfectly, and we'll talk about one that didn't go perfectly in the second segment tonight, but a 5-1 homestand. So you look at the last 2 homestands for the Royals, they went 5-2 and 5-1. So 10-3 in those last 2 homestands. That absolutely is a great success. And the big question mark's going to be, can they take the hot homestand and go into this road trip and not do what they did on the last road trip, which was go 2-8. I will say the 3 teams they saw on the road trip were a second-place team, a division winner, and a division winner. Or I guess if I'm going back to last year, a division winner, and a third-place finisher, because the Tigers were right behind the Royals last year. If you were to go to just this year, you would have a second-place team, a division-leading team, and a division-leading team with Cleveland, the Yankees, and Detroit. Much tougher opponents than you're seeing on this quick 6-game road trip. Tampa Bay is a scrappy bunch. In a lot of ways, they resemble the Royals for their supporting cast, for leaning on their pitching, leaning on their bullpen. And they're playing good baseball right now, like the Royals are. Then you get Baltimore, and Baltimore has maybe played worse than anybody next to Colorado over the last few weeks. I mean, they're 10-17. They have the worst team ERA in all of baseball, again, including Colorado, though they're up right now against the New York Yankees at home. So maybe they do get, a couple victories rattled off before they welcome Kansas City. The big key for this road trip is not just taking momentum, though. That's very cliche, and that's much easier said than done. And saying, well, just play as well as you did at home and play well on the road. They have to get the offense going, maybe just 70% of what the highest level of their offense brings you, if that makes sense. Like, if the highest level of this offense produces 8, 9 runs in a game, like, what I'm talking about when they've got those blowout wins. I mean, go back to when they scored 11 runs off the Brewers. Like, let's say that's the ceiling of this offense. Average 4 to 5 runs, in 2 of the 3 games of each of these series, right? Just give Michael Lorenzen a little bit to work with tomorrow. Give him a 3-run cushion in the first 3 innings and see how things change. See how much of that pressure is lifted off guys when you can go to the plate not feeling like every at-bat is so vitally important to scratching across a run. And I want to clarify something on that. It's not to say that at-bats when you're leading by 3 or 4 runs aren't as important, but we know that when you're scuffling and it's 0-0 in the 6th inning, there's a lot more pressure to get on base than if you're hitting with a 3-run cushion. You're more relaxed, right? You're not trying to press too much. You're not trying to ambush so many pitches. You're not swinging at stuff out of the zone with 2 strikes because you're so desperate just to get a bloop and a blast, right? To give some of these starters a cushion that can change things. And we'll see who starts on Wednesday night for the Royals. Cole Reagans has been dealing with that groin issue. They said that he felt good over the weekend. Maybe that means he's just feeling good before he's throwing in live game action. We'll need to see a bullpen. We might need to see a simulated game. And then we could see him on the mound Wednesday night. If not, I'll make my prediction that I believe Noah Cameron makes the start on Wednesday. That'll be one of my takes there. I don't see them putting Daniel Lynch in that spot. Maybe they do. Maybe they put Daniel Lynch as an opener, and then you try to piece together that start on Wednesday night, and maybe it matters what they do on Tuesday night. If they win in game 1, you're probably a little bit more comfortable going with an opener on Wednesday night. If you don't, and you had to burn through the bullpen a little bit, you might call up Noah Cameron to make a start because he's been stretched out to start down in Omaha. It's a tough Tampa Bay team you're facing. It's also a Tampa Bay team that's pitching staff has given up the most home runs of any other staff in baseball, in large part because of where they're playing. It is a home run friendly ballpark, and the Royals are dead last in baseball with 13 home runs on the season, a whole whopping 13. They have a chance now to maybe get some of these guys going, right? In the power department, getting Bobby Witt Jr. to run into a couple. Salvador Perez not to have a ball hit 2 inches, below going over the fence. Maybe Hunter Renfroe can run into one, right? Maybe Maikel Garcia, and what we saw in the first couple series of the year, run into one. I mean, that's something that can get the offense going. Seeing a ball leave the yard, maybe that's the spark they need. Again, though, they've got the off night tonight. Then they will take on Tampa for 3. They will have Lorenzen throwing in game 1 against Taj Bradley. We will wait and see who the starter is going to be on Wednesday. My guess is either Cole Reagans, an opener, or Noah Cameron. And then on Thursday, it will be Seth Lugo throwing on the bump for Kansas City. That'll be an afternoon start a little bit before 1 o'clock. And then they'll head off to Baltimore to take on a struggling Orioles team at Camden Yards. Let's take our first break of the show. When we come back, I got some thoughts on Chris Stratton, who once again gave up multiple runs in an outing. That's coming up next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Our first sponsor we want to give a shout out to is FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into some player props. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out and head to FanDuel.com to claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, that's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com for $250 in bonus bets today. Not that it would have mattered in the long run because the Royals were trailing 4-1 on Sunday before Chris Stratton entered the ballgame, but to see yet another outing go sideways for him, I believe it's starting to become very clear that with the promotions they've made and the success of those promotions, there's just no longer a need to keep Chris Stratton on the roster. And I'll be very clear on this point. I don't believe the Royals are keeping him on the roster to believe in some kind of turnaround or they're being stubborn about the money being paid to him. I feel very confident that when Hunter Harvey returns, which maybe could be by the end of this week, we'll see how the rehab outings goes. And I got asked this on Twitter, just was busy and not able to respond on Sunday. But has he gone out in the rehab assignment? Not yet. I would imagine it would be sometime this week, assuming everything feels fine. You get him a few outings. Maybe he can join the team at the end of the road trip, or you just wait till the Royals are back in Kansas City and they'll be taking on the Chicago White Sox. When that time comes, I am very, very confident that it will be Chris Stratton as the odd man out. And here's why. So you've got your regulars out there in the bullpen. You got Lucas Erceg. You got Carlos Estevez. You got Daniel Lynch. You got John Schreiber. Angel Serpa's not going anywhere. And then you've got these two final spots. Right now, they're being occupied by Steven Cruz and Jonathan Bolin. Jonathan Bolin, by the way, I forgot to bring his name up in the 60-second recap on Sunday. Thought he was great. And right now, it's because it's a crowded bullpen. But to throw mid-90s, maxing out at 98 yesterday, hard sinker, good control, good frame, maybe to be an opener or some kind of long reliever. There's a spot in this bullpen for him if it wasn't so crowded. And that's a good problem to have. They've been able to bring up some guys from Omaha, and those guys from Omaha have looked good. So Jonathan Bolin, and he was really only brought up because it was a righty-heavy lineup against Houston. That's why there was that demotion for Evan Sisk. It was nothing that he was doing wrong. It was that the Astros had one lefty in the lineup, and it was Yordan Alvarez. And he ended up crushing a lefty in that series, Chris Bubich, but he was struggling coming in. You want to have an extra righty, and I don't take any issue with it. It's not that we have to worry right now about Evan Sisk's minor league options, and if it got to that point, he would have stayed on the big league roster. But I would also expect him to be back with the team in Kansas City, unless the Rays have a righty-heavy lineup that I'm not super familiar with. I feel they're pretty balanced in that department, and having a lefty specialist in the bullpen is more important than having another righty that's really only going to be throwing in low-leverage spots. I mean, Evan Sisk could come in those spots that we've seen Angel Serpa in, and you need him to get a big out. Just one out. But they tried it with Sam Long. They've tried it with Angel Serpa. Evan Sisk or Daniel Lynch just might need to be that guy to get the big out from a lefty. As aside from the point, though, this segment's about Chris Stratton. And look, they're not all going to work out. Every free agent move you make comes with a risk. And when the Royals signed Chris Stratton, I will stand by the point that it was a good move. For what they were giving him, for the year he was coming off of, it made a lot of sense. And for their pitching department, what they loved was guys with a good spin rate on the curveball. And he had one of the better ones among relievers. He threw a lot of strikes. He threw 80-plus innings in 2023. He was a part of a World Series team with the Rangers. Like, everything about it made sense. And it just didn't work out. When he got here, you knew the velocity was never going to be a thing for him, but you assumed with the lack of velocity, there would be great command. And there just hasn't been good command. And he's a very hittable pitcher. And what I did look up yesterday, because I thought his outing on Sunday was a bit unlucky, and nobody's going to want to hear that, but let me be very clear on that front, which I've said about 3 times now in this episode. He had some bad luck with balls in play. He gets the infield single, the little dribbler, and he's actually great in limiting hard contact. That may be hard for people to believe, but go look it up. He actually has prevented a lot of hard contact this year. It's been almost death by 1,000 cuts. A lot of singles, struggling with the command, therefore a lot of walks. And that's just, again, it's not a great reliever. But he gets the infield single, the swinging bunt that he has to pick up. There's a bloop to left field, and Jonathan India is not really a left fielder. I would imagine a true left fielder catches that ball. And then he has the double down the line that scores 2 runs. It's just that he can't put anybody away. And that's a huge issue going back to last year with the Royals bullpen. They had too many guys that just couldn't put you away with pure stuff. And I was about to put something out there on Twitter where he was using his slider more than any other pitch. He struck out the first batter he faced. It was about 84, 85. There's a good spin on it. And he was throwing that pitch about 14% of the time. And he was using it roughly 65 to 70% of the time. And if he threw a scoreless inning, that would have been noticeable. The Royals hadn't used him in about a week. Maybe Brian Sweeney, Zach Bove, Mitch Stetter, they got with him and said, hey, let's throw this pitch. Now, if you're going to be out there, we still need some value from you. But it ended in the way pretty much every Chris Stratton outing ends. giving up multiple runs, having one back-breaking hit that clears the bases or scores 2 or extends the inning. And the Royals just don't need that in the bullpen. And it would be different if Chris Stratton could give you 3 or 4 innings, because in games like that, it's 4-1. You don't want to use Daniel Lynch, and you don't want to use Lucas Erceg and Estevez or Schreiber. You don't want to use those guys when you're down by 3, even with the off day the next day. You want to save those guys for when you get close to 1 or you tie the game or you take the lead. And Chris Stratton can really only work 1 inning. And right now, it's not a very effective inning. With the way Steven Cruz has looked, and I thought it was a big promotion to him to throw on Saturday night in the 7th inning in a 2-run game, you add Hunter Harvey back to this bullpen, who then becomes the 7th inning guy again. Who's the odd man out? It's Chris Stratton. I mean, it's not even a second guess at this point. It's really not. And I would say that, having Jonathan Bolin look the way he did, it gives you confidence that, well, if we got some more injuries, we can still rely on Jonathan Bolin. Or if we get some injuries, we can rely on Steven Cruz. Andrew Hoffman has looked good down in Omaha, and I wouldn't be shocked if he makes his debut at some point out of the bullpen in Kansas City this year. They've got an abundance of options now, and Chris Stratton just can't be one of those options. In baseball, it's a cruel world. Like, it's a business about winning, and if you're not helping the team win anymore, if this was 2023 or 2022, I really don't care if Chris Stratton's on the roster because he's only pitching in low leverage spots. But if you're not giving relief to the other guys in the bullpen, that's another part to this. The Royals had to go to Angel Serpa and then Bolin for 2 innings, right? Where maybe Chris Stratton can work 2 innings and then Bolin can work the other 2 and Serpa doesn't have to throw. Like, those are the little things and little low leverage innings that are important. They may not win the game, but if you're going to have somebody on the roster that's throwing in low leverage, they're still valuable innings. You got to protect the other guys in the bullpen. You got to keep the game close, and he just doesn't keep the game close. Hey, it's like 9 of his 12 outings or 9 of his 11 outings have resulted in him giving up a run. Some bad luck, some just not being effective or aggressive whatsoever. And the Royals now have guys that can fill in that spot. So my prediction, though it's not much of a hot take, I don't believe it's any bold prediction. When Hunter Harvey's ready to go, that will probably be the time the Royals will DFA Chris Stratton. Or if they want to keep him and not have to outright DFA him, they could always put him on the injured list with what I like to call the phantom IL stint. But we'll see then, and more importantly, we got to see what that progress looks like with Hunter Harvey. All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's preview the upcoming series against the Tampa Bay Rays. That's coming up on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Before we move any further, I want to give a shout out to our second sponsor tonight in Gametime. There's nothing better than catching a baseball game live, the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Gametime makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as Gametime gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The next series will be at a minor league ballpark in Tampa at George M. Steinbrenner Field, where a lot of home runs have occurred over the course of 15 to 20-ish games. And the Royals will be taking on a Tampa Bay team that is now slowly crept back into being 500. Last week, around this time, you weren't feeling very good about the state of the Tampa Bay Rays, but they've gotten a little bit of a boost, a spark from maybe right now the fastest player in the game in Chandler Simpson. If you haven't had a chance to watch this kid play, he is phenomenal for baseball. Absolutely love watching him. have actually had the chance to catch a few Rays games just on TV so far this year. That Padres series was such a blast. He robbed a home run from Manny Machado. He's hitting 400 in his first 30 at-bats. Like, he can be a problem. And not much power so far. He's got 12 hits, but 11 singles. Still, this is somebody that you are going to remember the name when the Royals are done playing him. But, whether he is making an impact at the plate, on the field, on the bases, you're definitely going to walk away from that series rooting for him as a player because he is one hell of a guy to watch. But tomorrow, I would expect him to be in the lineup. He's been their spark plug, and he was a big reason why they were able to take 2 of 3 from Arizona and then sweep the San Diego Padres in their last 6 games. So they're 5-1 in their last 6. The Royals are 5-1 in their last 6. Going to game 1 here, it'll be Michael Lorenzen going up against Taj Bradley, who is 2-1 with a 5.08 ERA. Some of the numbers from the Royals aren't very good against Taj Bradley. Kevin Biggio is 0 for 5 in his career against Taj Bradley. Freddie Fermin is 0 for 2. Michael Garcia is 0 for 3. Jonathan India is 0 for 3. Vinny Pasquantino is 0 for 2. Salvador Perez is 0 for 2. And Bobby Witt Jr. is 0 for 2 against Bradley. So nobody, and let's see here, 6, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19 at-bats. Nobody has gotten on base against Taj Bradley. Maybe that can change. I want to say they faced him last year, and it just did not go well whatsoever. But to begin the year, Taj has not pitched that well. Like I said, the 5.08 ERA. He did have a quality start last time out against Arizona, going 6 innings, 3 earned runs, struck out 3, walked 2. But against the Yankees, wasn't so good. 5 1/3, 9 hits, 6 runs, 4 walks, and 3 strikeouts, though that is facing the New York Yankees. So those will be the 2 pitching, Michael Lorenzen, Taj Bradley. One guy that does have a little bit of success against Lorenzen is Brandon Lau, who in just 2 at-bats has an OPS of 1.667. Pretty much everybody else, though, not much experience and not much success against Michael Lorenzen. On Wednesday, as we said, we don't know if it'll be Cole Reagans, don't know if it'll be an opener, Noah Cameron. We got to see how he looks, how he feels, and I'm sure that going into tomorrow night, Matt Quatraro and that coaching staff will have a good feel as to where Cole Reagans is at with the health of his groin. But he will be facing off, or somebody else will be facing off against Drew Rasmussen, who has been really good to start the year. He doesn't work that deep into the game. You look at his last 3 starts against Atlanta, New York, and Arizona. The deepest he went into the game is 5 2/3 against the Yankees. Now, he is a bit of a strikeout pitcher. He struck out 7 in 5 scoreless innings against the Braves on April 12th. He struck out 7 against the Yankees in 5 2/3. And then in his last time out against the Diamondbacks, he strikes out 5, walks just 1, but gives up 4 earned in 5 innings of work. And also looking back to his 2 starts before that, March 31st and April 6th, just 5 innings of work. He shut out the Pirates in his first start of the year. And then on the road against the Rangers, he held them to just 1 run on 3 hits, struck out 4, and walked 1. So that's a little bit of the information on Drew Rasmussen. And as for the Royals that have seen him in his career, you would get some at-bats from Hunter Renfroe, Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez, Vinny Pasquantino, Michael Massey, Isbel, India, and Biggio. The only one that has fared pretty well against him would be, by the numbers, Kevin Biggio, but only a 5.33 OPS. Hunter Renfroe's got the most at-bats, along with Bobby Witt Jr., 6 of them against Drew Rasmussen. They both have a 500 OPS with an average of 167. And then lastly, to close out this series on Thursday, it'll be a 12-10 first pitch. Seth Lugo going up against Shane Baz, who was just so electric in his last time out against San Diego. Gave up only 4 hits and 7 shutout innings, and he struck out 6. Already has a double-digit strikeout game this season. He struck out 11 in 6 innings, a 1-run ball against the Red Sox back on April 14th. And he also had another performance where he struck out 10 and walked nobody in 6 shutout innings against the Pittsburgh Pirates. They will absolutely have their hands full with Baz. They will have their hands full with Rasmussen. And based off the career numbers, should have some trouble with Taj Bradley as well. But these are 2 teams heavily reliant on pitching, heavily reliant on bullpen, but it's also a ballpark that gives up a lot of home runs. And more so, I should say, pitchers in that ballpark give up a lot of home runs, but the ball flies. It's a minor league, spring training ballpark. The Royals offense, if you needed the series to get going, though it's good pitching you're facing, this is one of those ballparks that you feel, you see if you leave the bat, leave the yard, might get that confidence back up. All right, that'll do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. If you like this episode, you can leave a thumbs up on it. If you want some critiquing to do, you can always leave a comment below, because that's the best way to reach me when looking at YouTube. But you also can always find me on my Twitter handle at JohnnyJ_15, as we've brought up before. Before we say goodbye, though, thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to recap what happens in Game 1 between the Royals and the Rays. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.